What I like best about the Terry and Jesse show is that it revives my hope in men to be godly men.
It's a really good show because it's relatable to family life, daily life. It's encouraging. It's like cheerleading also for Catholics. But number one, the reason I like it because you guys aren't afraid to speak the truth.
You are both the most compassionate hosts I've ever heard. And as a Jewish convert, I am a much better informed Catholic. Thank you, Terry and Jesse.
I just think it's the best thing that we have here in L.A. It's awesome. I'm hooked.
Welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show. We invite you to this holy hour of power. We happen to be two Catholics with PhDs in common sense. This is Common Sense Catholicism. Our program is not right versus left. You know what it is? It's right versus wrong. And this is actually Catholicism for the blue-collar man and woman. We want to encourage you, we want to enlighten you, and we want to offer you solutions. Today's show, my brother Jesse had to leave for back east, so he's on an airplane, so keep him in your prayers. But I want you to put your spiritual seatbelts on because I have a friend of mine who I met through Phoenix, Arizona, and she is an author. She's a journalist and a speaker, but she's doing a book on a remarkable conversion story of a woman who was a Muslim in Iran, and now she's Catholic. And this story will just blow you away. And just so you know, I interviewed her off the air to tell her story because on air I can't go that long because it's time sensitive. But when you hear her story and you want to get a copy of more of information on her story, just call us at 877-526-215, and I'm giving 2 copies of it away. You just pay the shipping. Her name is Joyce Cornell. She's author, journalist, and speaker, and she's calling from Phoenix, Arizona. And I want to welcome Joyce to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Good morning, Terry. How are you today?
I am blessed, and I love your zeal. I can hear it in your voice. You're a happy camper. And why shouldn't you be? You're in love with Jesus Christ. We should all be so happy.
Brother.
Yeah. And Joyce,
Amen.
The reason I wanted you on for these 2 segments is because I wanted our listeners to hear a remarkable story of a woman who came from Iran, and she was a Muslim, and she converted to Catholicism, and you're writing her story in a book. Can you tell me a little bit about it? First of all, Joyce, why are you interested in this story? What got you interested?
Well, Terry, I have been a journalist for a long time, and I thought I had seen everything. I covered everything from, house fires, kids with leukemia, murders, you name it.
Okay.
But about 5 years ago, I stumbled onto a story of remarkable faith, the Christians of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to know many, many Christians from the Middle East who live here in the Phoenix area and was actually adopted into their community. They've taught me some of their language of Aramaic, which is the language of Christ. And through meeting all of these people, I organized a few fundraisers. And at one point, this woman that we'll call Mariam contacted me. She wanted to come and take part in this wonderful event that we held. And she told me her story. We met over coffee, and she told me this amazing story. And it's really a story of the incredible power of the Eucharist, the real, and that we can know with 100% clarity that really is Jesus' body, blood, soul, and divinity that's present in the Eucharist. And it was the power of that Eucharist that brought her to faith in Jesus Christ.
Amen. Wow. Well,
yeah, it's a beautiful story.
I want to hear the story from your perspective as you've been interviewing her. The book isn't out yet, but I know from our interview it's a fascinating one. So give us start it off for our listeners because we're all anxious to hear this story.
Well, I have one book out already called A Martyr's Crown, and the character was introduced, the character who's based on this woman, Mariam, is in the book, in fact. Mm-hmm. And the book is about the story of a journalist whose life is turned upside down when she meets a priest from the Middle East who had been kidnapped and tortured for the faith. And so it's really sort of an 85% autobiography, I would say, because this is what really happened to me. I was a lifelong Catholic, and when I met a priest who really had been tortured for the faith, it just came smack up against my complacency, and it really called me to look at my own life and how I was living my faith, and couldn't I live it with more fervor, with more sincerity, with more abandon to God's will. Mm-hmm. And it really just shook me out of this rut that I was in as a journalist, as a Catholic, as a human being. really challenged me. So I did write a book on that. I've traveled the country and shared that message of faith and conversion. But a lot of people started asking me right away. There were book clubs around the country that were, ordering the book and studying. A lot of people said, you really should write a sequel. So I'm working on that. I'm about 80% done with it, I would say. But I'll tell you, I travel so much and I write so much that it's tough to finish. So I'd ask your listeners, pray for me.
Sure.
Because I really believe the Lord is going to do great things through this story. And it really is a story of a woman transformed by a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and the power of the Eucharist.
Joyce, you got me sitting on the edge of my chair. Please tell us the story. We're all anxious. I'm all ears. Go ahead. What's the story about?
So the story starts with this woman, and she's just a young girl growing up in Tehran, in Iran. This is a true story. And as a 5-year-old, she had this invisible friend who would speak to her. And she didn't have a name for this friend. It wasn't like a voice out loud that she would hear. But it was a voice, these were mental conversations that she would have with this friend. And sadly, this is a child who grew up feeling unwanted.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, Mom was somewhat preoccupied, I think, with other endeavors, perhaps. I don't know. But she felt, I think, unloved. And so she spent a lot of time alone. And in her solitude is when her friend would speak to her. And she came to understand many years later that this friend was in fact Jesus Christ. But as a young girl, she did spend a lot of time alone, and one day when she was about 10, she left the house to take a walk. She really liked to walk and still likes to walk. So she's out walking on the street there in Tehran, and their home was near 2 alleys. And she's walking through the alley, and her invisible friend alerts her to the fact that there's a car coming up behind her and that, there's danger ahead. And sure enough, a man steps out of the car, and this is a man with huge hands, and he comes up to her and grabs her around the waist and starts walking her back to the car. Now you know that this is not a good thing, and she's absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
And her friend, and she's reaching out to her friend saying, "Please, don't let anything happen to me. This would absolutely devastate my mother. You have to save me. Do something." And as this man has his huge hand over her mouth so that she cannot speak, she's begging the Lord, she's begging her friend to let her at least be able to scream. And just then the man moves his hand down, and she manages to scream, and he drops her, and the car speeds off, and she's saved.
Wow.
And she came so close, and she said she remembers the man looking down at his hand like, what just happened? He didn't intend to do that. He had every intention of taking her and doing God knows what. And so this woman, Mariam, goes home, and she says it's days, and she cannot even speak of it because it was so traumatic. And even now, I have to tell you that I am with her now. She sits beside me. She doesn't want her identity revealed, but as I tell this story, it's hard for her. It's emotional.
I bet.
And this happens with trauma victims. I've found in my career that, every time they're asked to speak of it or they're interviewed about it, it's like ripping open the wound. It's really difficult. It causes them to revisit that pain. And so it's out of love that she does this. And one thing that she said to me is that even if only one person comes to believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, it's all worth it, every tear. So the story continues. As at age 13, her father looks around and says, things in this country are not going well.
Yeah.
And like many Iranians, decides, we're out of here. So they wind up in the United States. They're in Utah. And, of course, they speak Farsi. They're outsiders. She has to learn English. She has to learn to fit in. And, the people there in Utah, very hospitable, and began inviting her to attend their church. She went to the Mormon church a couple times, went to the Baptist church a couple times. But it wasn't until she was older, some years later, 1989, that a friend invited her to attend Mass.
Wow.
And they go into the church, and when it came time for everyone to kneel, suddenly this presence that she remembered, it was the day that she was nearly kidnapped. And I should say that day when she was nearly kidnapped, her friend told her, remember this moment, because this moment is going to be very key in your life, very important. So flash forward, it's 1989. She's in this Catholic church with her friend. Everyone goes to kneel, and that moment at which she was rescued by Jesus comes back to her with its full force.
Beautiful.
And she's right there. She can feel the warmth of the air around her in Tehran. She feels the sun on her back. She feels everything that same presence of the one who saved her then was there on the altar, was truly present in the Eucharist. And she looked up at the cross and saw the corpus on the crucifix and made this connection that, it must be Jesus who is speaking to me. He's here.
Powerful.
His presence is real.
Yeah.
And she knew it. She gathered that this was Jesus Christ who has been her friend all of these years without her even realizing it. And, it's so beautiful because a lot of Catholics, we kind of pick up our faith through osmosis.
Sure.
And it's hard for us sometimes to realize, this intentional relationship of being a disciple of Jesus, of being a friend of Jesus. And she made that connection. Here's a woman who's had no catechesis.
Absolutely.
No art.
Yeah. Joyce, we've got to take a quick break. That story's phenomenal. There's a lot more stories like that on the interview that I did with Joyce. If you want a free copy of it, I'll give 2 copies of it away, of this remarkable conversion story from being a Muslim to becoming a Catholic who has a great love for the Eucharist. The way you can get 2 copies of the interview that I did with Joyce, that you're hearing a little bit of it, you can call 877-526-2151. That's 877-526-2151. If you want to also pick up Jesus, I Trust in You, the DVD, Discovering Divine Mercy, this is Divine Mercy Sunday. Go ahead and pick that up, too, by calling 877-526-2151. When we come back, we're going to have Joyce tell us more stories about this wonderful conversion. Don't turn that dial. Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. Like I mentioned, my brother Jesse is getting on a plane to go back east to preach a mission. But believe it or not, my brother, he's on the line. Before I go back to Joyce, who we're talking about a wonderful conversion story of a Muslim woman to becoming Catholic through the Eucharist. And again, folks, if you want to get the complete interview with Joyce that I had telling this whole story, you just heard one of the stories of her today, but there's many more on this interview. Call 877-526-2151. Jesse Romero at the airport. You're calling in, checking in. What's going on, brother?
Terry, I'm checking in and reporting for duty here.
I love it, brother.
Just want to let the audience know that I'm on my way to Johnson City, Tennessee. So if you have any family members in Johnson City, Tennessee, I'm going to be at St. Mary's Catholic Church tonight and tomorrow doing some power preaching and giving a parish mission. So if any of our listeners have family members in Johnson City, Tennessee, tell them to go to St. Mary's Catholic Church tonight and tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Sounds good.
And they'll be getting some power preaching with devil-destroying theology.
Jesse, thanks for checking in, brother. Our prayers are with you. I want everybody to pray with Jesse that he'll have a Godspeed and doing what he's doing out there in the mission work. And Jesse, I don't know anybody else that's doing as many missions as you. If you want Jesse to come to your church, go to jesseromero.com, and he'll be happy to come and speak in English or Spanish. Jess, thanks for checking in.
You got it, partner. God bless you.
God
Keep
love
it up,
you.
Terry.
You got it, partner. Folks, we're going to go right back to Joyce now, who I've been talking to about an amazing conversion of a Muslim to becoming a Catholic. She's writing the book, The Life Story of this woman. We'll call her Miriam. And you haven't heard anything yet. We just heard that wonderful story about the Eucharist and how, she's had an experience of having Jesus Christ visit her as a youngster. I've heard of this happening in many Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, from Father Zachariah telling me that, who's the priest who's been bringing many Muslims into the Christian faith. And so it's an amazing story. But Joyce, continue your story. We got interrupted with the break. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, we'll get right back into it, and I would just say that my friend has gone back now a few times to Iran, and at one point she was very excited to go back because she's quite devoted to St. Jude.
Right.
St. Jude would be the apostle who brought Christianity to that part of the world, along with St. Thomas, but she wanted to go there because there was going to be a big festival of St. Jude in this little village in the mountains there, and she was excited to think that she'd be celebrating the Eucharist in her own language, which is Farsi. And in order to get into this festival, People have to just keep in mind that religion in these countries, it's not like here where you can just pick what you want to be. It's life and death there. You're born into religion. You're the religion of your father. It's on your ID card in many places. And so she's told, listen, only Christians are allowed into this festival, so you have to bring proof that you're a Christian when you're there. So she says, no problem. And when she travels to go back to Iran, she brings her baptismal certificate because she did, enter into the church through the RCIA process.
Sure.
So she had her baptismal certificate, and there they are at the gate. She can't wait to get in, and they're checking IDs at the gate. And the man looks at her ID and says,
"Yeah."
Oh. He looks at her name, and the surname, the last name, is a Muslim name, and he says, "You're not allowed in here. You're not allowed in. Only Christians." And she said, "I'm a Christian." And she, digs into her purse and pulls out her baptismal certificate and shows it to him. She's thrilled. And he says to her, "Do you have any idea who I am? You have just handed me your execution papers."
Wow.
Because apostasy is punishable by death in those countries.
Yep.
Sure. It's a serious matter. And, of course, she's stunned. But she says, "Listen, I came from half a world away to attend this Mass. I would like to attend." And he says, "Well, just as long as you know, I work for the Islamic government, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on you, and we're going to deal with you at the end of this." So she says, "That's fine. I'm here. I understand I'll be under arrest when this is over, and I'll have to face the consequences, but I still want to go ahead with it." So fine. So she goes in. So, it's a wonderful festival. There's a lot to the story. But basically, she goes in, and during the Mass, she says to Jesus, to her invisible friend, that, boy, if there's ever a time to receive communion, this is it. And by receiving the host, by receiving communion, this is proof that she really has become an apostate. And they've got video cameras in there, and this man is going to video her, is going to record her in the very act of committing apostasy with the intent, of course, to execute her.
Sure.
And as we've all read, these executions are a public matter, and they're just an awful thing that continues on in countries like that. So she goes and she receives communion, and the amazing thing is that afterward she gets out of the church and she goes for a little walk, and her intention is just to go up to this little hill and to pray. And it's a beautiful day, a sunny day, gorgeous, and she's up on this hill and she's praying because there's a princess buried there who had been martyred for the faith. And she's thanking God, and she's praying, and she has this little prayer book with all the names of the people that she's been praying for, and her intent is just to leave it there at the hill. And as she's praying, suddenly this huge storm gathers, clouds, lightning, thunder, all of it, and it's just crazy. Now, there are thousands of people. Some 4,000 people have descended on this tiny little village.
Sure.
And it's dirt roads. It's a very primitive kind of a situation there. And all of a sudden, they're just encircled by this enormous storm. And their driver pulls up. Her friend is in the car and says, "Let's go, let's get out of here." And they managed to get in the car and scoot out and get out of that storm. No one else was able to leave that day. They were trapped for a couple of days because of all the mud and debris and so forth. But they got out. The driver said he couldn't even see in front of the car. And my friend Mariam said, "Keep driving." She knew that the Lord was with her.
Amen.
And they got back, and they're here. And I think, every human heart is born with a hunger, with a deep longing. And we try to fill that void with so many things, We love our snack foods, and we love shopping, and we pick all these transitory things. But God built us in such a way, no matter where we're born, no matter how we're raised, that we have this longing that's built into us. And the only thing that will ever satisfy that deep longing is Jesus Christ, present, truly present in the Eucharist. And so what a privilege it is. And this is what my friend continues to tell us. She's a person that rises early each day and attends daily Mass. She spends her time in the Eucharistic chapel because she recognizes that Jesus is really there.
Amen.
That this heavenly food is what sustains us, it's what strengthens us, it's what gives us the grace to live a life of faith. And really, here's this one, she has taught me more about being a Catholic than I ever learned before.
I bet.
It really shows you what God can do through grace, through His sacraments, And it's a privilege to have met her. And as I say, I have
Absolutely.
to write about it.
You do.
We hear a lot of great stories, but every now and then you hear a story that takes
This is phenomenal, Joyce. You know, I want people to get more of this information about her life story. We did do that interview, you and I want to give that away to people who want to hear more about this story by calling 877-526-2151. Joyce, how can people contact you if they would want you to come to their parish to tell this story? Is there a way of contacting you for that?
Absolutely, Terry. It's cmg.com. CMG Booking. Sorry, cmgbooking.com is a Catholic media group booking agency. It's a speakers bureau, and I'd be thrilled to come out and share this story with any parish organization.
Great. Well, Joyce, I want to thank you for taking the time to share it with our audience. May God richly bless you, and keep doing what you're doing. It's an inspiration, and God love you. And I hope you have a wonderful Mercy of God Sunday, because I want to encourage all of our listeners to participate in the Mercy of God Sunday by going to confession, Mass, and I just want to thank you for your zeal for your faith. I've been very impressed meeting you, so may God richly bless you and your family.
Thank you, Terry. You as well. God bless.
God bless you. Folks, you just heard an amazing story of a Muslim girl who ended up becoming Catholic. I did the interview, and there's much more to talk about that I didn't have time on the air to talk about, but I would share this with anyone. We recorded it and put it on CD. If you want to get a couple copies of it, all you have to do is call 877-526-2151. And as I mentioned, this is Mercy Sunday coming. Anybody listening who hasn't been to confession, this is the weekend to go to confession and entrust yourself to the mercy of God. As our Holy Father has said, God never tires of forgiving people. So if you've been away, now's the time to go. And if you're waiting for someone to tell you to do that, that's me. And I'm going to say this even. If the church offended you some way by a priest, nun, lay person, I'm a member of that church. Guess what? I want to ask your forgiveness. I'll get down on my knees right now and ask for forgiveness, because I want you back in the fold, and I know our Lord wants you back in the fold. So please, if you've been away for years, go knock on that rectory door, go to confession this week, and get back in the good graces of the Lord. This is Mercy Sunday. God never tires of forgiveness. So I would encourage you to do that. Again, if you want to get these CDs of Joyce's story, her interview with this wonderful lady, of how her conversion took place from Iran to being a Catholic, it's a phenomenal story. I was so touched by it. I would encourage you to pick up a couple copies for free. You just pay the shipping by calling the 877-526-2151 number. And by the way, that's the same number you can call to join our Apologetics Defending the Faith Conference May 14th at the Sacred Heart Chapel in Covina. Jesse Romero and his brother Johnny, who were on last week talking about this conference. This is a conference all day that's going to help you answer questions. Have you ever had questions at work asked by you about your Catholic faith and you couldn't answer them? You're going to have two on-fire apologists, Jesse Romero and his brother Johnny, give you good answers. I'll be there also. Call 877-526-2151 to join us at this conference. That's the same number you can get Marianne's conversion story of being a Muslim to being a Catholic. And again, our Lord appeared to her. And that's what's happening in these Islamic places. That's what's taking place. You want to hear a good story? Call us. 877-526-2151. When we come back, I've got some surprises for you. So please, don't turn that dial. We're going to come right back. Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. As you heard, Jesse's out of town. I'm here with my guardian angel now. So the two of us are going to do the rest of the show. And I just want you to know how happy we are to be with you. And thank you for letting me come into your home, your car, or wherever you're listening. I just want to bring something up that is shocking, because for the first time in human history, what are you going to say, Terry? For the first time in human history, people 65 and older will outnumber children under 5. What? Yeah, guess what's happening? We have an aging culture, right? Not just in America, but Japan leads the troop, the parade of having old people. Why are so many people? Well, yes, we understand people are living longer. I think the Japanese average age of a woman now is 85 or 86. It's like 5 or 6 years more than the Americans, and they talk about their eating fish and vegetables. Okay, fine. But what's happening is Europe, America, we're not reproducing. And I have to ask you this question, everybody. If there was a species that we were analyzing and they were killing their young, wouldn't we ask the question, what's wrong with those people or what's wrong with that species? There must be something wrong. Well, there is. We don't do it the way God designed it. In other words, we don't live our lives according to the commandments of God. That's what it really comes to, is being fruitful and multiply, which the Bible says, which the Catholic Church has said the model is family life. Well, I agree. I'm not going to be unrealistic. The family is under siege, right? But as St. John Paul II said in 1993, the way the family goes is the way the culture goes. I'd like to ask you, our listener, if this doesn't bother you, the first time in human history people 65 and older will outnumber children 5 and under, does that concern you with your grandchildren? What about all the people that are getting old, like the baby boomers, like me? Who's going to provide for them if they didn't have children? The state, the government? Do you think, and I'm just throwing this out, everybody, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, there's going to be some pressure to euthanize us. That's a nice word of saying killing us. And I say that because, guess what? 11 years ago today, Terry Chavo died after 13 days without food and water. Yeah. And not many people remember, but this was right at the time St. Pope John Paul II was dying. And like I said, Terry Chavo, she was just unplugged where she couldn't even have water or food. They just let her starve to death. And I find that remarkable that was that many years ago, 11 years ago, and look where we're going. Do you think that might happen when we get maybe another 10 or 15 years, when we start getting into our 70s and 80s, and they say, well, wait a minute, this person really shouldn't live much more because they're taking too much space and time and energy. That could happen. If you agree or disagree, call me at 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. I've got all the statistics, but you know what? Statistics are statistics. I'm convinced that when we live our Catholic faith as men and women and family life, that's the best thing we can do to evangelize. Yeah, one day at a time by our family. Now, I want to ask you, our listener, what are your thoughts in regards to the issue of euthanasia? And do you think that we're there? Do you think it's going to come? What do you think is the best approach to trying to have the sanctity of life? I heard just today on radio, a secular show, that this issue about abortion, saying, well, look, you got to have the woman's decision. She has to call it. But you know what? Social justice starts in the womb. If we don't have any rights for the unborn babies, we have nothing. Now, all my lines are lit up just right now. Unbelievable. I got a long list of people, so I'm going to get to them. But before I go to the phone calls, I want to remind you, I'm going to be at Blessed Sacrament Church Sunday for the Mercy of God devotion. I'm the main speaker there at Blessed Sacrament at 4540 El Cerrito Drive in San Diego. You can be there at around 2 o'clock. That's when I'm going to be there and give a power preaching talk on the Divine Mercy message. Also, don't forget the Apologetics Conference coming up on May 14th. Put that on your calendar. And in the first half of the show, that story of the Muslim's convert to the Catholic faith, hey, don't forget, I'm giving 2 copies of the complete interview with her. I think it's remarkable that she said Jesus appeared to her. Father Zechariah Boutros told me many Muslims have said the same thing, that Christ is appearing, and they're becoming Christians just on that basis. So I think God's using some miracles out in the Middle East. All right, before we go to our callers in line, let's get to my good friend Matt Arnold. I thank Matt always calling in. He's always welcome. Matt, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Well, thank you, Terry. It's nice to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you. You're a very good friend of mine, and you know that, and I always value your calls, Matt. What got your attention today?
Well, a couple of things. First off, I wanted to kind of weigh in on this demographic winter of the West,
Yes,
how we're
sure.
failing to restore our population. But first, before you went to the break, you were talking about Divine Mercy Sunday
Yes.
and talking about going to confession.
That's right.
And, Terry,
Sure.
I'm an adult convert.
Yep.
I came into the church. I was 36 years old, and I received baptism and First Holy Communion, confirmation, all in that same Easter Vigil Mass, right?
Yes, I do.
Sacramental Grand Slam.
Yeah, I love it.
And I had a long history of living very far from God and from that moral life that I try to embrace now.
Amen.
But of course, because I was baptized, or I'd never been baptized, I didn't have to go to confession before I came into the church. Right?
That's right. It's true.
So, but I'd be ashamed to tell you how soon it was that I felt the need to go to confession after I came to the church.
I can imagine that, too.
But the point is that I wept all through that first confession, even though my sins weren't so bad. The very fact that God knew from all eternity that I was going to be given this great gift of the forgiveness of my sins, and even the forgiveness of the temporal punishment due to those sins through baptism.
Yes.
And He knew from all eternity the first thing I was going to do was betray that. And He instituted the sacrament so that I could return to my baptismal innocence.
Amen.
And confession is such a great gift.
Yes.
And I've been Catholic, Terry. I've been Catholic long enough to know what it feels like to not want to go to confession, okay?
I love it. Honesty.
Yeah, to not want to go, it's like we all know it. We all know that feeling. You don't want to stand there in line on a Saturday afternoon and go into that box and confess yourself or, accuse yourself of the same stupid faults that you fall into all the time.
Yeah.
But you know what? As often as I've been reluctant, I've never regretted it.
Well said,
Not
Matthew.
once.
Well said. Matthew.
Okay. And I just
want
to
That's
tell you,
beautiful.
listen, if you've been to confession, if you've been away for a long time, get in the box.
Hey, man, what a great message. Matthew, if people want to have you come to their parish or to their event, how can people contact you? Because I love endorsing your work. How can they contact you, my friend?
Well, thank you very much. The easiest way is to just go online to www.matthewarnold, MATTHEW, MatthewArnold.org.
Great.
Just myname.org, and you can get all the details right there on my homepage.
Thank you, Matt, for your input, and thanks for your endorsement for getting to go to confession. I'm including that myself. Amen, brother. Thanks for the call, Matt.
Well, you know what? I wanted to weigh in on one more thing.
Well, weigh in on another thing. I got 6 more people in line, but go ahead.
Well, quickly then, quickly.
Go ahead.
When I got married again, my wife Betty and I, Betty,
of course.
When we got married, I didn't convert. I didn't convert until after our first son was born, Immaculate.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, how many kids do you want thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm going like, I don't know, and we're just leaving it up to Providence,
Yes.
But she told me from the time she was a little kid that she always prayed for the Brady Bunch. She wanted boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, 6 kids. Sure. And as Providence would have it, that's exactly the way it worked out.
Amazing.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because after we had our second child, we had a boy and a girl, people started asking us, are you done? Right? Because it's been drilled into our heads from the time we were little kids, in public school and stuff, that you have 2 children, you replace yourselves, and that's it.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And so we said, well, we're just going to see what happens. And then we had another child, another boy, and then we had another girl. And they're like, okay, boy, girl, boy, girl. That's perfect. Are you done yet? Right? And then we had our 5th child, and people started asking, what causes that, right? Making jokes.
Yes.
As though 5 kids is, it's not that big a family, frankly.
Yeah.
And then, people started asking, and God help us, even so our Catholic friends started asking, what are you using?
Yeah.
What are you using? And you know what they're talking about.
Of course.
And my response I said, and this is still the case, we're using SFP. That's supernatural family planning.
I love it.
It's worked out great. We had 6 kids so far.
Matt, that's great. Thanks for inputting that. You're a good man. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I just wanted to as a parting shot.
Sure.
It is our responsibility to have, if we're going to be in the married state, that we, do our level best to, with the help of God's grace, to achieve that full vision of the married life, that we are a committed, lifelong union of one man and one woman. Amen. That is open to life. That's the salvation of the West, Terry.
Well said, Matthew Arnold. God bless you. Thanks for your call, brother.
God bless you. Hanging out.
Right on, man. What Matthew just talked about is right out of the Catechism about marriage. and the unitive and procreative aspect of marriage, everybody. That's what we teach. The procreative, being open to life, unitive, the love between a husband and wife. That's what the world, needs, but the world's looking in all the wrong places, and the Catholic Church has it. Just look at what China just did about the one-child policy. Now they're reversing that. They know. They had to figure it out by example. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but Albert in Visalia, Ruben in San Fernando, you're up, buddy. Let me just get this commercial in, and we're going to take you out right after that. Folks, you're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. Jesse's out of town preaching the word at a mission. I've got my guardian angel here, and we're talking about, this is an amazing article, first time in human history people 65 and older will outnumber children under 5. This never happened before. And why? Well, the birth rates have gone way down. So what are we doing? That's what we're talking about. If you want to join in, call us at 888-526-2151. If you want that free DVD, Jesus, I Trust in You, which is the Divine Mercy DVD by Father Donald Calloway, call us at 877-526-2151. And if you want an amazing story of a Muslim converting to Catholicism, miraculous, you heard it at the beginning of the show, call us at 877-526-2151, and I'll give you 2 copies of that. When we come back, we're going to get Albert in Visalia. Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. We talk about having PhDs in common sense, and we're talking about common sense. Says, first time in human history, people 65 and older will outnumber children under 5. Well, common sense says if you don't have babies, that's what happens. And right now, throughout the world, with contraception and with abortion, I'll think of all those new babies that never came to be. I mean, even look at the economic. We talked about the moral aspect. What about the economic effect? Try selling shoes without having a customer. Try selling your food at the restaurant if your customers were never born. Okay, that's the effect of having no children. I mean, very few children. It affects the economy, but it affects, obviously, mostly the morality that social justice begins in the womb. We've got to have a value for a life. Albert in Visalia. I was up in Visalia about a month or 2 ago, or whenever I was. Albert, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show, brother.
What's up, my brother?
Hey.
The same blessed mother.
Amen, Albert. Tell me, brother, were you there the day I was up in Visalia? Or was I in Visalia? I don't remember. I go all over the place.
You went to Three Rivers. I was actually sitting in front of you during Mass, and then you came up to me and said, you know what, brother? I like your style. So I'm like, you know what? I like your style too, Terry Barber.
Okay,
so
Albert.
Here's what I got.
Hit me, brother.
First of all, for all our men who call themselves Catholic, you need to stand up, take a look in the mirror, and realize that the reason why these baby boomers are going to outnumber these children is because you have failed to take your families to church every single Sunday. You have failed to lead your family in prayer, and you yourself are not sacrificing and fasting enough. Today is the first Friday of the month. Tomorrow is the first Saturday of the month.
Amen.
What does that mean? That means that we need to be in Mass. That means that we need to be in the forefront of our Lord at his altar, kneeling with his Blessed Mother, praising and adoring him. Because if we want to put a stop to the evil that's happening in the world, we need to stand up now. Because though it is desolate and impossible, with God, everything is possible. And I got your email, Terry. I'm going to be emailing you, man. I want to talk to you about some big things.
All right,
God
Albert.
Bless. God love you.
God bless you, Albert, but I wish you'd really tell me what you think next time. You're a good man, Albert. God love you. Folks, it made me think of the Dr. Bernard Nathanson video called The Silent Scream. I know my partner, Patrick Madrid, earlier talked about that video, and if you go on YouTube, you can see a baby. I mean, they basically film killing an unborn baby. And Dr. Nathanson was a friend of mine. He converted to the Catholic faith. As a matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, folks. 25 years ago, I got arrested with him at an abortion clinic. We tried to shut it down by a peaceful demonstration. And I locked arms with Dr. Nathanson. And in fact, I gave him Scott Hahn CDs and cassettes back then, and Bishop Sheen. And he became a Catholic, and he spent his rest of his life trying to make up for reparation of the 75,000 abortions he committed himself. And if you ever want a copy of his conversion, I have it. You can get 2 copies if you just call the 877-526-2151 number. It's an amazing conversion story. We only have a few minutes left, but Ruben in San Fernando, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show, brother.
Hey, Terry, how you doing?
I'm too blessed to be stressed, brother. Go ahead.
Oh, it sounds good. Well, this is very interesting. Albert was saying about how we have to really stand. This is one thing. I just got off the phone. I'm not sure if you remember Ernie Chambers, Senator Ernie Chambers, 11th District of Nebraska.
Oh, I don't, but go ahead.
2007.
Yeah.
Okay, 2007, you can Google it, and you'll find out what he did. He tried to sue God. He actually made a legal document to sue God, and actually basically he was suing God for all the problems. Now he's the type of man that unfortunately accuses God of the problems we have. One thing the problem is we're saying abortion and euthanasia and all this, but he's actually suing God for this. So this is what I did. I called him, and guess what? The glory of God, what he did. He answered the phone.
Good.
I answered the phone, spoke to him. I said, my brother, I will not try to argue with you or anything. I can only do what a Catholic can try to do, convince you with the love of God. I said, you have something against God, grudge. As of me, I'm in California. Something caused me in my heart to call you.
Good.
And say, be right with God. Amen. God is not against you. He's for you. And you know what? He actually said, you know what? Actually, I appreciate you calling me because that tells me you care.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot. See, this is a politician. He's a senator.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're having all these problems is because we have a lot of politicians. And this is one thing hopefully Albert could do in California. Find out who's his local authorities, senators, congressmen. Mm-hmm. Are they Catholic? Are they Christian? And if not, try to convince them, but not really in a harsh way, because they're going to look at us like crazy people.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Yeah, so we're trying to want to really convince them. Let's find out these people, because remember, these people are the ones that are making laws that are anti-Catholic, anti-Christians, mm-hmm. that they want to apply to us. Abortion, all this kind of stuff. So we need, as Catholics, find out who are these politicians or, figures mm-hmm. that have this guy and try to convince them.
Yeah, Ruben, you've made some really good points. Thank you so much. What it reminds me is in my book, How to Share Your Faith with Anyone, I have a line that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you cared enough to make that phone call. I'm just going to give you a quick story that Ruben made me think of. A politician was trying to push Planned Parenthood in a local city here in the San Gabriel Valley. And one of the Catholic men on the board made a presentation and said, I'm against Planned Parenthood because it's killing our future citizens, and I'm not into that. And he was able to stop from having Planned Parenthood come into a Hispanic city. And why? Because he was a good man, and he stood up, and that's the point. When good men do nothing, that's when evil abounds. And Ruben, you make a great point. We have to stand up for what we believe. This is the time for Catholics to stand up. Listen to what St. Pope John Paul II said. America needs lay Christians able to assume roles of leadership in society. It is urgent to train men and women who, in keeping with their vocation, can influence public life and direct it to the common good. Well, let's face it, the common good, like I said, social justice begins in the womb. I heard someone on secular radio just say this, okay, it's a baby, but we don't want it. We're going to kill it. Well, I have to commend him on one thing. He was honest. But you see how far we've gone? That's our culture now, and that's why we Christians and Catholics that are Catholic Christians and people of goodwill have to stand up and say, this is wrong, we're not going to support it. And this is my point about this program not being right versus left, a political. No, it's right versus wrong. Killing unborn babies is wrong, and it's as simple as that. I want to remind everyone, because I have just a couple minutes left, to celebrate Divine Mercy Sunday. Go to the Mass, go to confession. I'm going to be down in San Diego at Blessed Sacrament Church. I'd love to meet you down there this weekend. If you'd like to have me come to your parish, I teach evangelization. In other words, the 10 Commandments of evangelization in English, and I come to your parish and fire people up. If you are at a parish and you say, well, we're kind of lethargic, we're kind of tired, a tired parish, they won't be tired after I go out there. If you want me to come, just call me at 877-526-2151. or go to our website, catholicrc.org. But I really would like to be at your parish because every weekend I go, just like I'm doing this weekend, to celebrate Divine Mercy and teach Catholics how to give their witness story. Honestly, everybody out there right now, how many Catholics have ever been taught how to give your witness story of your conversion, of how you witness to people about Jesus? I teach that in my book. I teach it at parishes. I'd love to come to your parish. I'll even give you my cell number. I've done this on the radio. You're not going to get too many people to do this, but I'm in love with Jesus Christ, and I want to share the gospel. My cell number is 661-972-7872. And if you have a question or a comment on the faith, I go all day long talking to people about the Catholic faith. I have a passion for it. I appreciate your prayers and support. If you can support our ministry also here at the Catholic Resource Center, we got to upgrade some equipment still. You probably have heard we're not breaking up as much now because we're getting new equipment, but we have to pay for it. If you could give us a call at 877-526-2151, make a little donation to help us with our equipment, we sure would appreciate that very, very much. And again, if you want to promote Divine Mercy, someone asked for 1,000 copies of the DVD, Jesus, I Trust in You. What is that, $20,000? And they're going to get it for like, I don't know, it was like $1 a DVD. I mean, what? $1,000 for $20,000? Yes, I want people to promote Divine Mercy. Father Donald Calloway is one of the best examples of Divine Mercy. He was into wine, women, and song, had a major conversion to the Catholic faith, and now he's a priest. So he's like St. Augustine. And what a story. This video is amazing on trusting, Divine Mercy. Call 877-526-2151 to get a copy of that DVD. You just pay the shipping and the handling. And again, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, since we're wanting to inspire pro-life, I think he's the best person because he, again, is like Augustine. He was involved in abortion industry in the late 60s. He personally performed 75,000 abortions, and he had a massive conversion. And I'd love you to get that, too. I've got so much goodies for you in the sense of promoting the faith. That's why, I'm a founder of St. Joe Communications, co-founder of Lighthouse Catholic Media. Over 30 million recordings have gone out in my 38 years. Why? I want everybody to know the faith. I want people to be high-information Catholics. So if you can get that by calling 877-526-2151, I'll return your call personally. I'm going to be here all afternoon waiting for you because I'm going to tell you, we have to be links in the chain in spreading the Catholic faith. That's what Immaculate Heart Radio is. That's a big link in the chain. All this programming we're providing for you, it's fantastic. It's turning lives around. And again, I always ask everybody at the end of the show, ask Jesus Christ for more faith every single day. And if you want me to come and talk to your confirmation kids, I'm doing a lot more of that right now to fire up the kids. Call me at 877-526-2151. And remember to renew your marriage vows often, because your marriage will not last because you're strong. It will last because you have the power to renew it. May God richly bless you, and I'll have my devotion to Fulton Sheen and say, full sheen ahead, everyone. Have a great Mercy Sunday.